Well, it was far from pretty, but Texas A&M emerges from Colorado, or should I say escapes Colorado with a 10-7 victory this afternoon at Empower Mile High Field. A lot to get to and a lot to digest from that game. Quick recap for those that didn't get the chance to see it. Haynes King goes down for the Aggies on the second drive of the game. And in comes Zach Calzada, who the two of them battled throughout the spring. There's no other way to put it. It was a flat out just ugly first half for the Aggies. They didn't get a first down until late in the second quarter. Put together a drive late in the first half where you thought maybe, okay, they might be settling in. But it was just, other than late in the fourth quarter, it was just ugly. There's no other way to put it. The offensive line did not have a good day. The running game was there at times, but just non-existent. And they only attempted just 29 carries for the Aggies on the day. Devon Achane finishes with 9 carries, 50 yards. Isaiah Spiller, 8 for 22. Not enough for either of those guys. But down the stretch late, Zach Calzada led the Aggies on a pair of long drives. Comes up with a key throw late to Isaiah Spiller, and A&M escapes with a 10-7 victory. Beginning with Zach Calzada, there's a lot to kind of look at with him. It was a tough day overall. And it's not going to be good enough going forward. That's for sure. This was a tough situation to walk into Denver on the road, but he finishes 18 of 38 for 183 yards and a touchdown. Again, he had the fumble along the goal line, but for most of the day, A&M's offense just could not move the ball. They were in too many third down and long situations, and that starts with not being able to run the ball, frankly. And that falls on the A&M offensive line, which was probably one of the big concerns coming out of the day for me in this situation. It honestly didn't probably matter who was in at quarterback, to be frank. Even Haynes King, when he was in there, A&M didn't get much going early with him either. He was 1 for 2 for 8 yards before getting hurt again on the second drive. The A&M offensive line, the performance today was just not good enough. They didn't get any push up front, and frankly, they couldn't run it on third and short or get anything going on that front because they just couldn't get any sort of a push. So that, to me, that was one of the big things of the day. Was they just really, against a front that they should have been able to handle. Communication was off, had a mistake late. We saw Bryce Foster put A&M in a really bad situation late when he didn't get the snap off, caused a delay of game penalty on 3rd and 4, which forced that 3rd and 9 that Calzada hit Isaiah Spiller for the touchdown in the corner of the end zone. But just overall, that's SEC play is now 2 weeks away, and it's not going to be good enough in 2 weeks. They've got to get this figured out. Overall, though, if you're an A&M fan, you obviously are happy to come out with the win. That's the first big takeaway. You're happy to escape Colorado, keyword escape, with a win, but there's a lot this team needs to improve on. And New Mexico next week, you want to see a lot better performance, even against a team like New Mexico, because Arkansas has rebounded after a tough week 1, and they're up early here in their second game of the season, and you need to be ready to go in 2 weeks. Alabama is right around the corner too, and a performance like today is not going to get it done against Alabama, not even close. So that's, to me, the big takeaway. Again, A&M escapes with a 10-3 victory over Colorado. Just starting with Zach Calzada, who again came in early in the first half for Haynes King. There was no update after the game from Jimbo Fisher. He said they're still waiting on more information about the extent of Haynes King's injury. He finishes 18 of 38 for 183 yards 1 touchdown. He was sacked once, made a few plays with his legs. He finished with 7 carries for 31 yards. Had a big 3rd down run early in the second half. But to be frank, for most of the first half, he just looked rattled. He just looked rattled, and that was one big thing is A&M, lost their cool in the first half. Did not get anything going, but you have to give him credit late. That was a gritty throw late to come up with the touchdown pass. But you've got to use this week now to get him some reps, get him in a rhythm with receivers. Too many balls that were behind receivers today, or high or over the middle, and just not enough on the receiving end. Dylan Weidemeyer finishes with 4 catches for 66 yards. Isaiah Spiller, 6 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. But one of the stories of the game, frankly, on a bright note for A&M, was the play of the defense. A&M's not in this game without the play of their defense. They played outstanding. We're put in a lot of tough scenarios, and time again came up with the stops needed. They limited Colorado to just 14 total first downs, which was pretty good considering how much they were on the field. They held Colorado at 89 yards passing, 13 to 25, 260 yards total, which in a lot of cases would be enough for a comfortable win. But they really stepped up today and really did exactly what they needed to do in that situation. Brendan Lewis really struggled today, 13 of 25 for 89 yards and an interception. Jaden Peavy had an interception early for the Aggies. If there was one area that Colorado was able to get some movement, it was on the ground. Brendan Lewis finished with 9 carries for 79 yards, and so that's the second week in a row that A&M struggled maybe a little bit defending a mobile quarterback. They were able to get him out on the edge a couple times, especially in the second half when they really couldn't get anything going. The MVP of this game for me is no question was Antonio Johnson. He was absolutely fantastic, reading plays, coming up in the second half with a couple of pass deflections. Just really, this was a game that I think opened a lot of people's eyes as to how good he can really be. That was a huge win for A&M in a recruiting process, and the sky's the limit for him going forward. And he really played outstanding today. Finished with 9 tackles, 2 pass breakups, and was just extremely active. Really good game as well from Jaden Peavy. Again, he had the interception, had a pass breakup, 2 tackles for a loss, and 7 tackles. Marvin Leal was also very active. He had a tackle for a loss as well and a pass breakup. But really, a lot was put on the defense's shoulders, and they showed up in a big way this afternoon. And without what they were able to do, A&M is not in this game at all, and they allowed them to overcome just a terrible offensive performance. I think one of the things I was really curious about this game was the lack of a running game, and I'm not sure it was necessarily a lack of production at times. It was a lack of opportunities, because if you look at Devon Achane, he averaged over five yards per attempt, and Jimbo Fisher talked about after the game that there were some stunts and things that Colorado was doing that thwarted them a little bit in the run game, but it was just perplexing on certain situations to not stick with the run game more, especially given how out of whack offensively A&M was. It was really perplexing that Isaiah Spiller only finishes with 8 carries. Devon Achane finishes with 9 carries. In a situation like this, they're going to have to, depending on how long Haynes King was out. Again, Jimbo Fisher did not have an update after the game, said they're still waiting on more information. But they're going to have to lean on those 2 guys when you start looking at Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Alabama. Yeah, there's no question. Just an ugly performance offensively, and I think that was one of the big things for me was you kept waiting for the running game to get going, or for them to at least stick with the running game. And they just put the ball in the air 38 times for Zach Calzada. Is too much. It's too much. It put them in a lot of they were in, for me, they were in third and long too many situations. And credit Zach Calzada for making some big throws in the fourth quarter. That's something that, I'm sure A&M will try to build on with some of the throws that he made late. He seemed to settle into a bit of a groove in the second half, but boy, A&M should feel very fortunate to get out of this game with a win. But that's ultimately what it comes down to sometimes is you're not always going to play your best. You're not always going to have your best stuff. And A&M found a way to at least, win and survive. But there is a lot to clean up going forward. And you take the wins when you get them. A&M, again, moves to 2-0 on the year after a 10-7 victory over Colorado. But, watching this game, there's just not a lot offensively that you feel great about moving forward, depending on how long Haynes King is going to be out. Should get more clarity on him, I think, Monday. But this is the second game in a row that, the A&M defense has really responded. 17, I don't care who you're playing, 17 points through two games defensively is just outstanding work on their part. And Mike Elko really called a great game after the first quarter. Again, second game in a row that an opponent was able to get a little bit going in the first quarter or so, but that defense really stepped up when they needed to and closed the game out. As well as they had played in that altitude, and it would have been easy to get tired. But funny enough, A&M actually won the time of possession battle, which, just given how terribly they played offensively, would be a stunner. Again, to recap for those just joining, A&M pulls out a 10-7 victory over Colorado. Haynes King finishes 18 of 38 for 183 yards and a touchdown. I think it's important to look ahead now. A&M will be hosting New Mexico next week at 11 a.m. on Saturday back at Kyle Field. Question that we got here is, can A&M even beat New Mexico? I don't think A&M will have a problem with New Mexico. They're going to have to play a lot better. I think you start looking 2 weeks down the line, though. You really have to, because the truth is A&M didn't play nearly close to being, frankly, even close to a ranked team this afternoon. But going on the road for the first time, that's a bit of a challenge. But I know there's not a lot of satisfaction and excitement coming out of this afternoon's game for A&M fans, and a lot of concern, frankly. And I think you sensed a sense of urgency from Jimbo Fisher after the game. He wasn't happy with his performance either. Said it's on him to get things fixed moving forward. Again, you'll take the win though when you can get them. A&M improves to 2-0, but just looking at the schedule moving forward, you've got Arkansas and Mississippi State on September 25th and October 2nd. And frankly, those are going to be the two games right now that all eyes are going to be on those two games, because Alabama's looming less than a month away now, and it's hard to feel good about where A&M stands with that game less than a month away. And it's going to be a huge game for A&M. There's going to be a lot of recruits in the house. And frankly, the performance has got to get a lot better. Again, you're listening to the Texas A&M Kent State postgame, the voice of college football. For me, the biggest concern, there's a couple concerns defensively for me. The first is offensive line. I didn't see the offense. In fact, I saw the offensive line take a big step back from week 1 to week 2, and that's really concerning, because you see a lot of teams take the biggest jumps forward from week 1 to week 2, and I didn't see that from A&M. You saw the big step back, and Jimbo Fisher talks all the time about it's not just on the quarterback. It's not just on the quarterback. It's on everybody else around him too. And this afternoon, I just didn't see a lot of help coming from other areas aside from Achane and Isaiah Spiller. Came up big late, big runs, a couple big runs, and that just left me more perplexed why those two didn't get more opportunities, especially early in the first half. You kept just waiting for them to turn to the running game, and it didn't really happen until the second half. Again, you're going to go back and look at the film and clean a lot up. I will give a big credit to Zach Calzada for coming up big late with the big throws, the big throw to Isaiah Spiller, obviously, and just to respond after the big mistake in the fourth quarter. That's something he's going to learn from. Has to learn quickly, depending on how long A&M needs him for. He needs to take a big jump next week against New Mexico, because it's going to be on him likely. If we didn't get a definitive update on Haynes King, but he was on the sideline in a boot and crutches after the game. Again, should get more clarity on his status on Monday. The bright spot I get for Zach Calzada, no interceptions today. That's a bit of a bright spot. You got to live till the next play, and that's what he did. He finishes 18 of 38, less than a 50% completion percentage, which isn't ideal at all. And then the key stats, some of the key stats that A&M really, dominated last week. Penalty yards were not good today, 7 for 65. And again, that was one of the big things is A&M just played from behind the chains too much, and that. With a young quarterback, it's just going to put you in problematic situations. And again, with a team that's got national championship and playoff hopes, those are some of the things you're looking ahead to. Again, A&M on third down, 8 of 20, got better late in the game, had converted a couple huge third downs, especially on those last two drives, to come back and pull out a victory. And again, that's one of those things that Jimbo Fisher said after the game is sometimes you find out what your team is on a bad day. But this was certainly a bad day for A&M, and it's going to need to get better in a hurry with the SEC schedule around the corner, because today was not good enough. Shout out though, just quick shout out to all the A&M fans who traveled to the game. I thought the environment was fantastic. Power Mile High Field, they got real loud late in the game, especially on that last drive. Big shout out to the fans who made the trip. They were loud, and you knew A&M was going to bring a lot of support to this game, and thought it was a great environment. So kudos to all those fans who were out there and stayed with it. Again, to give a quick recap of the game, A&M rallies late for a 10-7 victory. They fell behind 7-0 early in the game, and then just got absolutely nothing going offensively for most of the afternoon. They got a late field goal drive in the second quarter. Was actually the first time they got a field goal, or they had gotten a first down. And just looked absolutely lost offensively. Again, there was a complete absence of a running game in the first half. And then you kind of thought late in the game that A&M had their chance. A huge moment in the game was midway through the fourth quarter. A&M was driving down for what appeared to be the go-ahead score. Zach Calzada fumbles it at about the half-yard line. Depends on which angle you looked at. It looked like he did fumble it or lose control before the goal line. But that was a huge play in the game, and that's something as a young quarterback, that's a play, frankly, you can't make. And that's you can't try to reach out for the goal line in that situation. You have the first down. You got to live for the first and goal opportunity, and he's going to learn from that. But it almost cost A&M in a huge situation. The defense again comes up right after that with another 3-and-out stop, gets it back to A&M, who comes right back again, drives down as a 3rd-and-9 situation late in the game with, and I thought this was another key. Jimbo Fisher talks so often about operating the offense, and A&M did a terrible job of that this afternoon. Had to burn just about all their timeouts on on avoiding delay of game penalties, getting lined up. Again, things that are just simple things that you should be able to do. Weren't lined up right. Had to burn a couple timeouts in the second half. I get the frustration on they kept throwing to Chase Lane. Totally agree. There just wasn't a lot of windows available. Would have loved to have seen Damon Demas get a couple opportunities today. Again, Jimbo Fisher said earlier this week he was coming along well after missing quite a bit of time with a foot injury. He came back with about 2 weeks to go before Kent State, and is getting back in the flow of things. Again, saw him, real active on the sideline, real into the game. But at some point he's going to have to get on the field and see what he can do, and see if he can create separation. Chase Lane did have a big 3rd-down catch late in the game that was big. On Hez Jones, he's out right now with shoulder injury, so he was not available today. Miles Jones was not available, and neither was Luke Matthews. So those were the 3 injuries for A&M: was Miles Jones, Hez Jones, and Luke Matthews. Obviously, still waiting on the return of McKinley Jackson, who was unavailable again this week. But A&M did get Michael Clemens back, and he had a big play early in the second half with a big hit on Brendan Lewis. And I thought that's when A&M's defense started to impose their will a little bit. Was early in the second half, started to get more pressure, started to get some shots on Brendan Lewis. But again, no Hez Jones today, and no Miles Jones or Luke Matthews either. But again, just going back to managing the offense, A&M was down to 1 timeout late in the game, and that was, I think that's going to be something that's going to have to get cleaned up, especially before you begin SEC play. On Eli Stowers, he was moved to tight end at the beginning of fall camp. Again, we'll see if maybe he ends up getting some reps this week at quarterback. But with Haynes King and Zach Calzada established, he moved to tight end early on in fall camp, and was really having a good fall camp at tight end. I think he's got the athleticism to play the position, and so it was something that A&M decided to try out. And but I wouldn't be surprised if depending on how long Haynes King is going to be out. And again, Jimbo Fisher did not have an update on that after the game, so they were still waiting on more information before getting a definitive answer on him. You could see Eli Stowers get some reps at quarterback again, maybe. Again, on Antonio Johnson, I said this earlier, but I thought he was the player of the game today. Just his activity in the backfield and just his instinctiveness was really a tremendous story today on a defense that played really, really, really well and kept A&M in the game when, frankly, they had no business being in the game. Just his awareness on that, even on that final drive, to get his hands up, get a tip, force a deflection. Kudos to him. I thought he had one of the best games he's had since he's been in an A&M uniform, and showed that he's ready to kind of take the next step. And that would be huge for the A&M defense to go along with some of the other guys they've got on that side of the ball. DeMarvin Leal, I thought, had a great game as well. Jaden Peavy was active. And then even you look at Damani Richardson and Leon O'Neal and some of the plays that they made late. Great play on the ball, I thought, by Leon O'Neal to break up that third down and not get a pass interference, which was a huge play in the game. Kept Colorado out of scoring territory, and is really, I mean, when you look at that, when you look at that defense, A&M's going to have to lean on it quite a bit, and this team's still developing their identity. But again, if on things that I did not love today, the offensive line did not play well enough. There's just no other way to put it. Did not generate enough of a push in the run game. Did not deal with some of the stunts up front. Did not allow Zach Calzada to really set his feet. Zach Calzada, he's going to have to be, frankly. They're gonna need him to settle in. I give him a lot of credit for the way he played in the fourth quarter. He started. You're right. He's Dallas Kahn. He started to settle in a little bit. And it's a really tough situation to come in as a backup quarterback. And so I think you will see him play better next week. Obviously against New Mexico, you hope so. A&M's going to need a lot better performance against New Mexico. But sometimes I know folks really clamor for the backup quarterback, but during the week the starters obviously getting a lot of the large portion of the reps with the ones. A&M does practice a little bit differently, which maybe helped in a situation like this. They're very focused on everybody getting the same amount of reps, and so you've got ones versus threes on one end and twos versus fours on another end of the practice field. So he is getting reps for sure, but not getting reps with some of the ones, at least since Haynes King was named a starter. So I think you will see him be better next week. But the question is, will he be better when they start getting the SEC play against Arkansas and Mississippi State? That's going to be the big question. Again, I don't expect New Mexico to give him much of a problem. If they do, then there's a lot to be concerned about moving into the Alabama week. But I thought he settled down kind of midway through the third quarter. The drive late in the second quarter helped out a little bit. I thought was going to help out more in terms of settling him down. But come the fourth quarter, he made the throws he needed to make. They were far better on third downs late in the game when they needed to be than earlier in the game. I think at one point they were 3 for 10 on third downs, and that's been an area that A&M has really excelled at in the past. So on Zach Calzada, I mean, he's going to need to be, depending on how long Haynes King is out for. Again, we should get more of a clarification on that come Monday when Jimbo Fisher meets with the media next. It's a tough situation to come in as a backup quarterback, and the crowd was into it. He looked rattled early in the first half. A couple too many throws that were high, couple throws behind, even on some easy throws to Chase Lane. Again, not a lot of Damon Demas today, and I would have liked to have seen him get a little bit more today. I thought just with the separation he can create, again, that's a decision that's up to Jimbo Fisher a little bit. But it's something we've asked about. He said he's happy with the progress he's making, but again, Jalen Weidemeyer finished with 4 catches for 66 yards, had a big reception late that allowed A&M to get into scoring territory. As Isaiah Spiller was fantastic, has that huge catch late to give A&M the lead. 6 catches, 56 yards for him. And I thought one thing that at least was better in the second half was they started to get Zach Calzada some easy throws, some throws swinging it out to running backs, some quick reads and some short passes. But it's the same keys with Zach Calzada. It's touch, and he's got to be able to make good decisions. The positive today was his bad was as badly as the A&M offense played. No interceptions for Zach Calzada. He did have the huge fumble late. And, limiting turnovers is going to be a key for A&M moving forward. And, just looking ahead to Arkansas and Mississippi State, getting the running game going. 9 carries is certainly not enough for Devon Achane in a game like today where you're trying to take pressure off of Zach Calzada. That was just a puzzling thing to me. He averaged 5.6 yards per carry. I agree on the special teams. I thought they were tremendous today after not punting all of last week. Nick Constantino certainly got his work in today and thought they did what they needed to do special teams wise. I agree. I think that was one of the biggest stories today with the running game was just A&M just really didn't stick with the running game, and then that'll be something that probably shows up on film. 29 carries for 108 yards, average 3.3 yards per carry. I think it was a situation where obviously everybody knew what the game plan was going to be for Colorado coming in to try to load the box, force the game to be in the hands of, regardless of whether it was Zach Calzada or it was Haynes King, that the plan was going to be to force those guys to make plays and beat you with their arm. And that was certainly something to consider. Again, I'm not sure it's just I'm not sure today was just a running game issue. I thought it was an offensive line issue. And A&M just did not play well enough on the offensive line. And that is concerning again, just looking at from week 1 to week 2, when you talk about communication, you talk about some of those simple plays, Bryce Foster not snapping the ball in time late in the game, which forced A&M into 3rd and long. But that game plan wise for me, that was one of the big things was I didn't love the game plan today, just in terms of I thought there were too many situations where A&M was in 3rd and long and relying on Zach Calzada. I agree on Colorado's front 7 is really good, but that's A&M's strength is going to be running the ball with Isaiah Spiller and Devon Achane, and frankly, just speaking truthfully on looking ahead to the SEC slate, A&M's going to face some really good fronts, and so if you can't run the ball effectively against Colorado, you're going to really struggle in some of those other games, especially the Alabama game, which is, again, less than a month away, and A&M's got a lot of work to do between now and October 9th against Alabama, because a performance like today, and it's not going to be pretty against Alabama. I said this before the year, but one of the big keys for me was, especially with a young quarterback and an inexperienced offensive line, A&M has to stay ahead of the chains. You can't rely on having a veteran quarterback in Kellen Mond. I know fans feel up in the air about him, but and you can get away with maybe being in a 3rd and long with a guy like Kellen Mond who can read fronts, read coverages. With a young quarterback and an inexperienced offensive line, A&M can ill afford to live in 3rd and long, and that was one of the big issues for me today. There were too many 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 13s, and then you're just asking for trouble. And I think they actually escaped more trouble than it could have been. And if we're being honest, in terms of Zach Calzada making a big mistake, he had the big fumble on the goal line. That's a play where he's trying to make a play, and you understand that part of it, but you've got to tuck the ball away and live for the next play and live for having a 1st and goal situation. In terms of the backup to Zach Calzada at this point, if need be, you've got a couple you could turn to. Zach Daniel would be one option. He's a transfer from Hawaii. That would be one. You have a walk-on who just I don't know if that would be the type of situation you'd be looking for in Blake Boast, but I think if it came down to it, Zach Daniel would probably be the next guy. He got some time in the spring game, and I know it kind of caught fans' attention with the way he threw the ball during the spring game. Thought he looked really good. And then you got Eli Stowers, obviously, who came in as a quarterback. It'll be interesting to see if he maybe gets some reps at quarterback. That'll be something we'll certainly check with Jimbo Fisher on Monday. Once A&M has a clearer idea of the extent of Haynes King's injury. Again, Jimbo Fisher did not have an update after the game, said that they were still evaluating, waiting for more information on Haynes King's status. So that'll be a big question mark heading into Mexico. Otherwise, it's a chance to get Dak Calzada reps, and those reps are certainly going to be important for him. He's going to need them before A&M begins SEC play in 2 weeks against Arkansas. And I know A&M's obviously won quite a few in a row against Arkansas, but they're gonna need a lot better performance than they got today. Once you get to SEC play, and every game's a challenge. A performance like just not going to get it done on a lot of days. Again, huge kudos to the A&M defense, which responded time and time again, and especially in the altitude, where I know there was a lot of talk coming into this week about the altitude and whether A&M was going to battle with the altitude, and the defense did exactly what it needed to do, holding Colorado to 260 yards on 63 plays. And funny enough, I think it was one of the most fascinating storylines from today is as poorly as A&M played offensively, the Aggies still finished more plays, more yards, and controlled time of possession, which is kind of amazing to think just based on what happened in the first half. But again, just it's a start. It's a huge win to get to pull it out on the road. There's going to be days when you don't play well, and A&M certainly made just enough plays in the end, as Jimbo Fisher said, made one more play than Colorado did, and you feel fortunate to come out with the win. You move to 2-0, and there's nothing to apologize about that, and they're just going to have to keep getting better and get better in a hurry before returning. Again, they'll return to Kyle Field next weekend against New Mexico at 11 p.m. Before facing Arkansas in a few weeks in the Southwest Classic at AT&T Stadium. Mississippi State on October 2nd, and then that big date with Alabama on October 9th. But again, A&M pulls out the win, 10-7, far from a pretty game, but we'll see how they respond next week. Returning home to face New Mexico, and there'll certainly be some questions to get answered. For now, I think that just about covers it. And again, we'll be on every week, good or bad, like today. Kind of going through what happened and walk through everything on the offensive line. It's a couple things. It's a technique deal. Got to be better in terms of getting leverage, and saw some leverage issues in terms of pad level and things like that, and footwork. Those things need to get cleaned up, but really it comes down to communication today. Communication. There were a couple stunts from Colorado's defensive line that gave A&M problems, and that's something I think Jimbo Fisher talked about after the game. Is he'll have a better answer on Monday for that, on whether there were some stunts that certainly gave A&M problems, and I think that was one of the big storylines. But for me, it's just not getting enough push, especially on those third and short situations. Layden Robinson really battled through. Give him credit. He did fight through some injuries, but again, I just think they got to get more of a push in the running game, especially if you're going to be without Haynes King for a length of time, and it's going to fall on the shoulders of Isaiah Spiller and Devon Achane, and A&M's going to need to control the ball and stay in third and short situations. That's the big key for me. We'll see what the status is of Haynes King again on Monday. But Layden Robinson, yeah, he battled through. He was limping quite a bit, but fought through it, and credit to him for fighting through injuries and fighting through whatever was going on there. But simply put, they just have to build cohesiveness and have to play better. I guess the one bright spot today would be Zach Calzado was only sacked once, but he was certainly under pressure quite a bit more than you would like. And so they've got to do a better job protecting him, giving him time, letting him set his feet. I thought there were a couple times when footwork broke down a little bit when he was under pressure. But again, just in terms of the running game, they got to get more of the running game going. And Smith, even only 1 carry for 3 yards, couldn't get him going today. And so I think getting the running game going and being able to get downhill will be something that's really beneficial for A&M, especially in terms of the offensive line. But we'll see with a week of practice what the offensive line looks like next week. I don't think you're going to be able to take a lot of answers away from next week, though. Just in terms of New Mexico, you want to handle business. You want to come out of that game healthy with Arkansas around the corner, and then we'll find out where this team is in 2 weeks. Frankly, when they take on Arkansas to begin the SEC play, and then it's go time. But all of A&M's goals are still in front of them, and that's the best news of the day for A&M fans. Is you come out 2-0, you survive. Not every team can say that, and so kudos for them for getting a win on the road, but there's no question. There's a lot of things to clean up moving forward, and that's the big takeaway from today. Again, we'll be on every weekend. Thanks again to those of you who've joined us and chimed in with questions. That's what we're here for, to answer the questions you guys have, and we'll be back again next weekend. So with that said, have a great weekend. Enjoy the full start of the NFL season tomorrow, and we'll be back again soon.